Welcome to the Wolff Den presented by Win Again Academy. I'm Matt Wolff, founder and CEO of Ticket Time Machine. Today we have Gene Bennett on the show. Welcome to the Wolff Den.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. How you doing?
I am doing great. We talked a little bit off camera. I was like, did you Google Gene Bennett, like FBI? I was So for anyone who might have heard, because Gene Bennett might be a household name. My wife is a big crime court TV and watches all those Who Did I Marry and the murder mystery stuff. So someone might be thinking this is the Gene Bennett from the FBI. This is not Gene Bennett from the FBI. This is Gene Bennett of the military ilk. And but for the people who don't know who you are, give us a quick introduction and then let's get into it.
All right, my name is Gene Bennett. I'm an Iraqi freedom veteran, and I wrote a book. We Did Not Deserve the Crapper, the prison we entered but never fully left. The book took 10 years to write. Had I knew how to use StreamYard and Zoom when it came out, I probably could. And if I were computer literate, I probably could have cut that time almost in half. Okay. So yeah, I wrote the book. It's about my time in Baghdad as a prison guard. That's the main thrust of it. And I had to collaborate with several guys from that compound, and one compound over to get all the stories, confirmed. And it kind of got out of control because it went from confirmations to collaborations, and the collaborations turned into full-on interviews. And it was just constant refinement. And I remember this now, and I remember that now. Now we got to figure out how to integrate this into the main story. And it was nuts. It really was.
When you're writing a book.
Yeah,
I would venture to say, even if you're talking about stand-up comedy or storytelling, I mean, how important is it to get the details correct? And I mean that from your point of view, as what you're putting out there, and from a reader's point of view. I'm reading this. I'm not going to really know the difference if it's true or false.
Right. Here's the thing about that. I got my guys involved because they would have, if I would have gotten this wrong, those are the guys who would have done unspeakable things to me in the process of me getting it wrong. So I kind of built my own consequences into the collaboration. You see what I'm saying? And because this is a story about an internment facility that, by the way, was the only internment facility in all of Iraq that had a compound where we had the VIPs, we had to report into the Pentagon every 24 hours. So getting it right, that some of the old timers in the unit, if I would have gotten it wrong, they would have skinned me alive online. They would have come to my house and bad things would have happened. So yeah,
the military aspect of that changes. What about the military aspect of what I can and can't put in this book?
It's all about OPSEC, or it's OPSEC, operational security. Now they call it information security. It's a really newfangled way of saying loose lips sink ship. So nothing sensitive, sensitive items with sensitive information with new technology, things like that. But this was, guarding prisoners or spicy babysitting, whatever you want to call it. It's as old as time. It was chain link fencing and concertina wire is what civilians like to call barbed wire, but it's concertina wire. It's as basic of an exercise as it gets. I mean, I'm a diesel technician. I was a diesel technician and a truck driver, and all of a sudden, Big Army uttered the most horrifying words that no soldier wants to hear: the needs of the Army, which means you're going to do whatever we tell you. It doesn't matter if you know what you're doing or not. We'll teach you in the most basic and rudimentary way possible. But now, as long as you're not, and I ran this through one intel guy and an old Wounded Warrior Project buddy of mine who was a poor man's Pentagon. Because the problem with the Pentagon during COVID is nobody was getting information out of them. I called up my intel buddy and I'm like, dude, you need to get a hold of somebody in the book review section department and find out what's going on. He's like, dude, if I can't get anything, you're not getting a damn thing. So that's when we just decided to go with it, And I did a poor man's Pentagon review process to the point where it was like I had to go with it because it's a classic case of the hall monitor's back in his little office or closet or whatever, and everybody just starts running. They're like when the pace car pulls off the track, and everybody just hauls ass. Yeah. So that's as long as you run it through veterans you trust that will help you make sure you didn't say anything that violated OPSEC, you're fine.
And by the way, I might know someone, if there is classified, I might know someone who can just unclassify it like this or something with their mind, or
That would be helpful. Thank you. I
they can
appreciate it.
just go ahead and do that. The book also talks a little bit about
Mhm.
mental health,
Mhm.
depression, stuff that you're doing now, coming back, some PTSD.
Yeah.
I want to talk about that a little bit and
Mhm.
say, yesterday or 2 days ago was World Mental Health Day.
Mhm.
It's such a huge issue, but such a huge issue in military. This stuff
Mhm.
happens, and we hear. I don't know a lot. I guess you can tell. There's a lot of help for veterans, but there's a lot to be desired with help for veterans. Is that
Yeah.
fair to say?
That's an understatement. I'm an Iraqi freedom veteran. I've got Iraqi freedom veterans, enduring freedom veterans, else under the umbrella of the global war on terror. My father's a Vietnam veteran. The VA, you know, okay. When you're working on a car, you go through your diagnostic processes, whether it be flow charts or the diagnostic flow charts or whatever. The last step you get to when all else fails, it's called firing the parts cannon, meaning you just throw parts at it and guess and hope something fixes it. The problem with the VA is that you remember the scene in Predator where Jesse Ventura takes his minigun and just clear cuts the forest with it, basically. You remember that part? The
I'm sorry.
VA has turned the parts cannon into that minigun, and they just spray and pray and just throw pills at you, you know. And so yeah, the VA is not equipped to actually help veterans. They usually farm it out if you fight with them hard enough or if you just irritate them enough. And if you don't have insurance, you get bottom of the barrel care, so you have to beg and plead and fight to get outside the VA to get quality care, because like the meanest thing I ever said to a VA doctor was, would you pretend you don't work for the VA and accurately diagnose me on the first try? Oh,
Yeah.
the stink eye he gave me. Now, it's the problem is the VA is holding all the cards, and for the most part, and a lot of every civilian provider I talk to will tell me they don't want a thing to do with the VA because they are these hyper confident idiots who it's all about their system. It's all about how they do things. They don't want to work with people. They want to force people to work for them. Okay. So the VA is about it. We need to kind of transfer power from the VA to other veteran nonprofits that are actually effective and actually care about veterans. And I mean, I've got a whole list of horror stories at the end of my book in the epilogue about my VA horror. About there was an incident where I was in a 2-day diabetic coma in Elizabeth, New Jersey, and my Wounded Warrior Project guy who helped bail me out of that, they tried to run about $2,000 in bills at me because they didn't want to pay him, and because the VA didn't want to pay the $60,000 hospital bill, they pawned it off on the charity, the New Jersey state run charity organization, so they didn't have to pay the bill. That's why the bill collectors came after me. And bill collectors going after veterans when the VA refuses to pay is not uncommon. I've got veterans who have had 2 and 3 bankruptcies because of that. I've already paid a $1,000 bill to the VA because they didn't want to pay the bill. I lost count about $4,000 or $5,000 I had to send, or I had to get my VA caseworker to talk to the bill collector, and that was one of the most mentally retarded conversations I've ever bore witness to. And that's the norm. Stupidity, dysfunction, and laziness is the norm of the VA. So we really need to just disband the VA, take all that money and turn it into individual insurance accounts for veterans that the civilian population, the civilian medical sector will accept.
So
That's the only hope for veterans.
It's more of a infrastructure than lack of funds.
It's infrastructure, and the corporate attitude of the civilians running in the VA towards the veterans is
It's not run by veterans.
What's that?
It's not run by veterans.
Oh, absolutely not. Veterans are more or less in a token position in the VA. Where, I mean, a program director in the VA who's a veteran doesn't mean a damn thing. That's token crap. Yeah. Mostly they're janitors, and you get the occasional physical therapist, and you get the CVSO who, is usually a VA bootlicker because they want their pension and their paycheck. About all they can get for you is license plates, and they'll help you file your appeals. And yeah, I've got me and my guys got horror stories from here to eternity. So all the horror stories you've heard are true, and you still don't know the half of it.
Yeah,
So
my wife's an attorney, and she does veterans benefits. She did veterans benefits. She's in mediation. I don't know if she still does veterans benefits. Mm-hmm. She definitely was doing them before and helping a lot of people out. It's a process that you need someone who knows what they're doing to help. Because the money's there, they'll get it to you. It's a long process, but the average person doesn't know how to do that themselves. The average person, non-veteran, just doesn't know how to file these claims and figure out how to expedite processes. So, there should be more help for it. That's where all, and it's interesting because, when we talk about mental health, I talk about mental health too. I'm a champion for mental health with the organization called Same Here. Mm-hmm. I've been through my bouts of depression. It's a lifelong battle, regardless. Even though I'm in very good shape mentally right now, but the thing is, there's people who are like all that stuff. It challenges your mental health, right? So you're a VA, you're a veteran, you have health issues, you have PTSD. You're trying to get this done, and the fighting and the stuff that you have to go through, that can't be good for your mental health.
Dude, let me put it to you this way. I had one point where I was talking to my caseworker. I was in my front yard. I was screaming at him to where I had veins throbbing out of my neck. The cops had to be called because I was going off on him. At one point, my neighbor, God bless him, I love him. He's like the uncle / father I should have had growing up. He at one point sent me. He literally took me to a local mom and pop restaurant, got me a job as a dishwasher, and this is where how it's bad. When you get into the first juvenile murder, they talk about how they take those old school soup ladles where the handle is welded or tack welded to the little bowl part, right? One of the first juvie murders is where they separated the handle from the bowl and they shanked him with it like almost 20 times. My first day on the job, as soon as my supervisor walks away, I have this almost out-of-body experience where it's like, I don't want to say out-of-body, but I just start looking for the soup ladles. And fortunately, they were like one solid piece construction, but I was mad as hell as soon as I found them. So right now, my depression is so bad. Literally, I have people checking on me. I have people literally monitoring my caffeine intake. I have people, it's like my projects that I'm working on outside of the book that I linked to the book are going to be designed to help veterans like me get like from in my room into the kitchen and then from the kitchen outside. So we're physically out of the house. It's that bad. The isolation is that bad. I mean, I screamed and fought with the VA to the point where they sent me to a TMS. It's called TMS of the Carolinas. It's a magnetic brainwave therapy where they just zap magnetic waves into your brain to treat your depression. Because right now we're working on the depression side, and we might work on the anxiety side later after I get done with my biofeedback therapy that I'm just getting hooked up with out in Vegas. So that was as of a couple of days ago.
And you had none of this before you entered the military.
I was raised by a Vietnam vet, so I had some form of PTSD from him, but think of it, okay, you got a car, those old cars, the 50s and the 60s cars where they got the ignition coil. What happens is you've got your childhood trauma, your whatever mental health illness you got, whether it be PTSD or anxiety, whatever. That's the primary coil, or that's the secondary coil, the big coil on the outside. The primary coil is Iraq or Afghanistan. What Iraq or Afghanistan does, it amplifies your childhood trauma. My grandmother said to my mother, she says, "Did the war make him crazy?" And I had to give my mother an answer. And I says, "No, war doesn't make you crazy. War simply amplifies the crazy that you currently have. It amplifies it and makes it worse. And then when you come home, you bring home your bad, your battlefield, your downrange habits. Like we have a horrible habit when two veterans assess each other, we look at each other to say, can I trust this jackass in the most dangerous, stupid, dysfunctional scenario downrange that's humanly possible? And we bring that ultra uber harsh analysis home with us, and then we beat you civilians over the head, and then we go full hermit just to protect you from us.
Yeah.
And then we talk to our battle buddies just enough to take enough of the pressure off so we don't lose it. And that's what we're doing. That's why my stuff that I'm attaching to the book, I'm trying to get out to the veteran community and the first responder community is my way of saying, okay, I'm struggling right along with you. Here's what I'm trying. Here's what I'm doing. Once I get this up and running, you guys take it and run with it and tell me how you do, you know? So I'm trying to do that just as much for myself as for them. But it's like, I've got to get this stuff done while I'm struggling with my mental health issues that the VA doesn't want to look in the mirror and say, we are contributing to veteran mental health issues. We're every bit the mental health detriment that ISIS was, that Al Qaeda was, that Jaish al-Mahdi, which is Shia side of the house, you know.
Yeah.
The VA needs to look in the mirror and say, we have to own our rotten behavior. We have to own the fact that we contribute to mental health, the 22 a day. We contribute, and rumor has it was 35 a day during the pandemic. Okay, the 35 a day suicide rate. You know, that's what I heard. So the VA needs to look in the mirror and say, we need to stop contributing to the veteran suicide rate and stop driving these people crazy and contributing to their trauma. So yeah.
Yeah, that's an alarming number.
Mm-hmm.
What can be done? I mean, how do you change how do you change the administration? Is that a political thing?
That's not a political thing. That is the VA is a self-sustaining entity. Okay, their purpose is to sustain themselves. They are irreparable. They are like, I got 2 pictures I should have sent you, and I'll post them up later to illustrate my point. You've got an engine that's in perfectly good condition. They're just doing a minor adjustment where they take a feeler gauge, stick it in there to adjust a gap in there so the engine will run better. That's what the VA thinks is wrong. The other picture is an engine block that has literally exploded to where you can literally see the insides of the engine block because they've exploded. That's what the VA is. Okay? The VA is irreparable. Okay, unless you get the crusty sergeant's major and your crusty platoon sergeants who got multiple deployments going in there and completely overhauling the corporate culture of the VA. I mean, you would need to go scorched earth on the entire upper echelon of the VA, clear up to the secretary of the VA. They'll appoint generals to run to be his secretary of the VA, but that's token crap. Unless you've got crusty old soldiers who have been downrange, been on convoys, been kicking in doors, and get it on the level that veterans like myself are comfortable with, all the changes that the VA makes are token crap, token garbage. Either reform it with the old NCOs who know how to put boots to asses, or you completely disband the VA, completely destroy it, raise it to the ground.
Who's going to do that?
It'll never happen because the public sector unions rule with an iron fist. Yeah. It would take you'd pretty much have to have an act of Congress to say, we are disbanding the VA. It would take an act of Congress to disband the VA, take all that money and convert it into legitimate insurance accounts for veterans to where here's your insurance account, go find a doctor. And then you'd have the DAV, you'd have the VFW, you'd have the American Legion acting as advocates to empower veterans and help veterans get the care they need. That's the way it should be. Get your really rock solid nonprofit veteran organizations to facilitate veterans finding what they need in their neck of the woods. That's the only cure. The VA is broken beyond repair. The CVSOs, don't even get me started on them.
Yeah, no, it's something that you hear about that needs to have change. Hopefully something down the line will be able to fix it and make a better situation, because that's an alarming number. The 22 a day. It might even be higher. Who knows?
No, it was 35 during the pandemic, and they say the real number is closer to 40.
Yeah, they said some drug overdoses as far, why are people doing that? But so you grew up in a military family. You kind of understood what the military was about. Were you encouraged to join the military? Were you excited to join the military? Was it a combination of the two?
My
Like you
father
had
and
no
my
other
uncle
option?
were the storytellers, and the stories were amazing. They were incredible. And my mother, here's the thing, here's what really got me to join the military. My mother hated my father, like hated him, hated his guts. And
Were they married?
they were married, but man, the dysfunction was unbelievable. And I wrote about it to an extent, but there's some stuff I got to take to the grave with me, because in the process of writing this book and having conversations with a couple of particular family members, I learned things that I could never put in here. And
it's enough to really challenge you and change your life. I mean, I watched Dahmer. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to say his parents divorcing and arguing or what caused him to do what he's doing, but it didn't help matters.
No. Here's the thing, though. My mother said she's like, "You're just like your father." I'm like, where the hell is he? I don't know who he is really. I didn't meet him until after I really split up with my mother and left her. And I have a very scientifically curious mind. I'm very curious. I'm not saying I'm smart. I'm just saying I'm curious. So I found out my dad was in the Army, and when I joined the Marine Corps, it was, okay, I need to do this scientific experiment. I need to figure out why he was a drunk. I need to figure out where the rage came from. And after 2 deployments, I got it figured out.
Okay. You had to join to do that?
I did it because I wanted to understand. I didn't want to just argue with her. I needed to understand. I'm the kind of person, I need answers that are very concrete. I live by very concrete answers. I don't like speculate. You have to tolerate speculation, but I don't like to speculate unless I absolutely have to. So it was like one of those things. I need to know, because I came from him. I needed to understand him on that level. That's why I did it. I needed it because I came from him, and I grew up with him being violent and angry, and I needed to go through the experience to get him on that level, because I wanted to understand. I don't like understanding things in a half-assed manner. So that's why I did it. I wanted to really get it.
I feel like, yeah, that's tough. I mean, if do you want to know more about it? Does it matter? Is that why you are? Maybe, did some of that stuff come back to you? In some respects, could you just go through life and be like, look, that's who he was. That's not who I am. That's a tough thing to struggle with too. But I want to say, so you grew up in a military background. You joined the military. You have these reasons for trying to figure out. What percentage of people join the military and immediately are like, what in the world did I just sign up for?
Well, that's like 99% of the military when they get it. Unless you come, I came from a strong military family, but I mean, unless you do, you're like, it's the shock, like only as far as the population of America, of the country that actually enlists and joins is like 2% tops. Yeah. So yeah, we're elite.
And how much of that turns into, okay, I'm figuring it out, I'm learning, I'm still in it, and then the other people who say, I want out?
Well, that's I'm not sure what that number is, but it's pretty small. A lot of people make it because it's once you get over the shock, you decide for yourself that you want to get through this because of the shame of failing. Because if you succeed, it's because you have a lot of your oldest dirt master sergeants and first sergeants have this old saying: you need to develop a very strong desire to not screw this up. And the ones that survive have that strong desire. That's why they're SEALs, and that's why they're Rangers, and then Marine Force Recon. That at that moment of the shock, that desire kicks in because you don't want to feel the shame of failure.
Yeah. And I, salute to any veteran, anyone who wants to serve and protect, because I don't want to do it. I would never want to do it. I don't know anyone in my life who would sign up for that, and if they were forced to, would it's one of those thankless jobs in a way that just people don't want to do. They don't want to do it. People don't want to be a police officer. They don't want to put their lives in line. They don't want to uproot their whole entire life for this. And I don't blame them for that. So that's why I have extra respect and appreciation for the people who do it.
Well, here's the thing. Being a veteran, being on active duty, or being in uniform, especially down range, it's like being Big Brother. When you defend your family in a way before you're in the uniform, you generally don't tell your parents what you do. I did this and this and this to make this happen. That's being a veteran is like Big Brother with lots of guns and explosives. Okay, you just do you do the hard things as the dutiful good son or dutiful good daughter, whatever. You just get it done. You got some cute stories to tell, but you kind of keep them to yourself, except for your closest friends. That's what being a veteran is being that dutiful good son, good daughter, big brother, and just handling stuff because it needs to be handled. That's really what a veteran really is when you break it down.
My grandfather was in the military. He told us a story. He fell asleep. He was on like on the top of a building somewhere, and he was on. He was supposed to be on watch, and he dozed off and fell asleep. It was luckily nothing bad happened, but it's yeah. There's stories, you know. Everyone's got stories from there. When you're in the military, I forget who it was who was like, I'm not going to do this. I don't agree with what we're doing. What was the big story about? What was it? But I mean, is there a lot of chatter between or thoughts internally about, hey, I'm in this fight. You know, we go to Iraq, we go to Afghanistan, we're helping out Ukraine, we're doing, you know, we got. Is there because you don't have a whole lot of choice as to what you do. You do what you're told, and the people who are making these decisions are really just at the top, the president and
right
below there.
All right. Here's the thing. There's talk about like that all the time. We have to process that before we go do the mission. You know what I'm saying? That chatter is constant because it's part of the human condition. You have to have you're going to have doubts. You know, because you have doubts because these people at the top, they just issue mission statements. They go do this. And then we decide how to do it. You know, we decide how to actually execute their mission statement. And sometimes these are the people that come across as the kind of person that scares me the most. I came across that kind of person in boot camp, that hyper confident retard. I'll never forget this. I'm sitting here, I'm standing there, I'm in Marine Corps boot camp, and and this major is asking this recruiter question about what a MAGTF is, and it's Marine Air Ground Task Force. He didn't know. So the recruit said, I don't know. This recruit doesn't know. And he says, if you believe 2 + 2 is 5, then you say 2 + 2 is 5 with all the enthusiasm and confidence that you can muster. I'm like, I thank God the thought that was in my head did not come out of my mouth, or my military career might have gone in a completely different direction. I'm thinking, you dumb bastard. You dumb bastard. Your confidence is supposed to be the end result of you doing things right on a consistent basis. Your confidence is supposed to be an extension of your reputation of doing things intelligently, doing things smartly, doing things properly, doing things thoroughly. Those are the people that scare me after this. So these people that project confidence, I hate and fear them, because those people are stupid, and stupid people get people killed in combat downrange. So yeah, you got to be able to have these conversations, because we're the ones who gather the intel. We're the ones who act on the intel. We're the ones who pass it along as objectively and honestly and in as unbiased a manner as possible. So yeah, we've all got you have to have the conversation before you go downrange. You keep having them when you're downrange, and you do it just to process and survive the mission with as much sanity as you can have left when you get home, surviving the obscene op tempo or pace in which you're doing missions. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, we have those talks all the time, but we have them discreetly, and we try to process them as smartly as we can, so we can keep unit chemistry and integrity really good. So because you have to be able to work together well and get along, and that's where that brotherly love eventually kicks in, is when you do it well long enough, you get to know your people, and you're like, I can trust this dude. I love this guy. I want to.
You're putting your life in, you know, I go to A Few Good Men, which is my favorite movie of all time. You know, your lives in their hands, and ask them to put theirs in yours. It's a beautiful thing,
dude. It's a beautiful thing. That's why I'll never. I have a platoon sergeant, one of my old team leaders. I call him up every once in a while, because all I'm going to say is he's near the top of the food chain. Every now and again, when I get what we like to call the deployment itch, I don't care if I'm fat. I'm I'm staying in reasonably good shape. I'm like, dude, get me deployed. I've got the itch, because it's not, you don't want to kill. You want to be with those people that you know you can trust. You want, and you're not. It's not about the killing. It's about being the best version of you for that brother and that sister when they need you the most. That's what it is. It's not killing. It's that best version of you in that moment that they need you to be. So
well, you've seen some stuff. It's in the book. People can read all about it. It's part of what you bring back. I want to talk about the Ukraine situation right now. I think a lot of people don't understand how important it is that Russia doesn't succeed. You can see what's on the ground. The people. I mean, that's enough of the stuff that you've seen that could be when there's no help there. But what do you say to people who are like, why are we sending all this money there?
Well, we're sending money because it's basically a proxy war. Like when we were fighting the Shia in Iraq in 05, 6, 7, 8, 9, we were in a proxy war with Iran. So we're in a proxy war because we don't want to actually get into a real one right about now, because a lot of the old veterans are thinking, because of all this woke garbage going on, we're thinking a lot of those old veterans are like, we're going to get dragged out of cold storage because we're going to lose half of our standing army in the great misgendering offensive in the opening days of the war, But no, I've got a friend who actually went to Ukraine, and we haven't talked about it yet, but it's a stupid. It's what we call a dumpster fire. Pardon my language. It's what we call an F5 shitstorm. It's just, I've got that friend, and he and I are going to eventually talk about it. But then I've got a friend who has a wife who's Russian, and that those conversations are really, really tense, and I have to be really careful about it. But yeah, right now we're just in a proxy war, letting the Ukrainians do the heavy lifting while we just support them the best we can, so we don't have a real shooting war where NATO has to live up to its obligations.
Yeah, like there's enough. Yeah. I would think there's enough support in NATO, more than there's some countries would come to Russia's defense, but if these situations, like even with North Korea, I was like, why don't we just get in and get these people out of power? And what this whole nuclear war thing too. I'd like my opinion or my understanding of anything. If there's a nuclear war, we're all done, right? You can't survive a nuclear war.
Well, I mean, you got preppers who would beg,
and then
you have preppers who would beg to differ. I'll just throw that in there just so I can say I threw it in there. But now, you've got the problem with regime changes, as some people like to call it, is what. The first question is, what are you going to replace it with? And then here's the thing. My father's a Vietnam veteran. I saw I lived with what was left of a human being after my grandfather, the war, and the anti-war protesters did. Now they're a small minority, but they're vocal as hell, and they really wreak havoc on morale. I personally can't stand the sight of them. I have nothing but contempt for them. Because my father, again, Vietnam vet, got spit on, called baby killer, and had rocks thrown at him as he was coming home from Vietnam. And basically, because we're an all-volunteer force, the challenge is maintaining the morale long enough to win the war decisively. And we don't win wars decisively anymore because we have politicians who have their heads so far up their own asses, it's tragic. So you got these turds that use the term regime change and warmonger, because they want to feel more badass than what they actually are, because they've never been off. You got these fobbits that like to run their mouths about what they think, but they know about war, because they like to try to intellectually reverse engineer the combat experience, and that is the dumbest thing ever, because you can't use your higher brain functions to reverse engineer a savage limbic part of your brain that does horrible, horrible, horrible things. And that's why some of these virtue signaling turds masquerading as veterans and masquerading as people who claim to love us, that's why they're a problem, because they're that hyper confident retard I mentioned in boot camp that think they can just intellectualize their way through a concept that you have to survive and process and understand and grow from. They're that stupid and arrogant, and they're as dangerous as any nuke, because they're too stupid to come to the conclusion to look in the mirror and say, you know what, I might be full of crap here. So yeah,
let's say like Putin has committed war crimes. That's right.
here's the thing about Russia
When all war
historically.
feels like there's war crimes. It's hard to feel like there's rules of war, even though there are rules of war.
Okay, there are, but they're easily violated because this is horribly dark. We have a thing in the military, especially downrange, especially with combat veterans, called gallows humor. And it's how we process the horror we're seeing so we don't go completely insane, literally. And there's an old saying, it ain't a war crime the first time. Okay. And I in the book, you could probably technically call what the Staff Sergeant Nambla character did to the detainee a war crime.
Yeah.
All I'm going to say is that if you want to read about it, it involves a disturbingly creative use of pepper spray and surgical gloves. I still can't unsee it. And but here's the thing. You have people who want to intellectualize their way through war, like these anti-war turds who think I can just frontal cortex my way through this experience, when that they will never access the savage limbic part of themselves that will make them either every bit the cowards we think they are, every bit the killers they think that we are, So war is too messy to really maintain long-term momentum. You got to win quick, because the public doesn't have. I don't know why the public does or doesn't have the stomach for war, because they don't fight it. They
don't understand. I think they don't understand what happens if we don't.
No,
that affects us. Like most people, I think I'm for the greater good. I'm for the greater good of the U.S. first, and then the world. I think a lot of people aren't like that. They don't. If it doesn't affect them, it's the same thing with, money. Like, how's this going to affect my life? But I think that's what the majority of people can't see.
Their problem is our service and our ability to preserve their freedoms is both a blessing and a curse. It's a blessing because we're the freest country on earth, and you can have conversations about that from here to eternity. The curse is they get to be as stupid as they want, and there are no genuine consequences for it, because their attitude is, unless this problem is right in my face, it's not a problem. We're veterans and people who defend this country look out as far as we can to identify threats and keep them away from these people who are too stupid. We're protecting these people from their own stupidity. We have to anticipate threats as far away as we can to keep it away from the people we love. And they just don't have the capacity to think like that, because it involves them looking at the mirror at themselves and saying, am I capable of being everything he's saying that I am? They desperately want to say no, because the day they have to come to the conclusion that they are every bit the heathens that they think we are, it will destroy them. It will destroy their psyche, and they will be a shell of whatever human they could have possibly been. Okay. Yeah, so war is the ultimate human temper tantrum. War shows you what you most naturally are once your sophistication is stripped away, the most natural, two-legged, savage animal that you actually are. And they can't come to terms with that.
I mean, most people don't. They don't know about it, and I'm probably in that same camp. I don't know enough about it. All I know is I trust the people to keep us safe, and for the most part, they do a very good job of that.
And here's the thing that I love about you. You have enough sense to have intellectual curiosity about it. Most of these people, they're just walking along, living their life completely oblivious to the protection that is provided them, whether they know it or not. They don't see it for the passive system that's actively protecting them. Yeah. And they just live this blissfully ignorant existence. And we're like, wow, how do these people walk out of the house unsupervised? Holy cow. But yeah, it's our success is both a blessing and a curse, and we just roll with it the best we can.
Yeah, it's, we hope to never have to worry about these things, and part of the reason we don't is because of what we're, the military and the government is, and the world too. We're not alone. We're not fighting this alone. We're just the biggest and the baddest,
right?
And so, you put your best foot forward, right? You put your best people on the front line.
Well, what you do is you get people. What you got to do when it comes to the veteran community. What we like to do, we're always all about situational awareness. That's one of our buzzword, one of our buzz terms. Keep your head on a swivel. Keep your eyes open. Notice things. Be alert. and that's why I'm usually so. Veterans are basically high functioning caffeine addicts because we like one of my habits that I've never broken since I got home within a fob, where you're based when you go from fob A, like let's say I went from fob Q West way up north about an hour south of Mosul, all the way down to Talil Adder, which is 75 miles away from the Kuwaiti border. And oh, by the way, I could walk out of my shop, look to my left a little bit. I saw Abraham's ancestral temple. That was so awesome. That was so awesome for me. Anyways, you could do that. You could do that, and you have to be aware. You have to be. There's a 4-mile radius in which you're most likely to get hit, and then outside of those 4-mile radiuses, the 2 posts you're at, in between is the most soul-sucking boredom you will ever experience. You're like begging to get shot. Somebody please shoot at me. I'm so bored. And when we get out on the road, when we get out when we get off the fob, we as veterans have the most real, raw, and honest conversations. That's where the love really builds for us as a community. When those raw conversations happen and we're real with each other and we show each other love and support each other and have those kind of conversations that are what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas conversations. That's where the love really is. The foundation of the love that we have for each other is really built. That's why we stick together. That's why we do this.
Yeah, it's brotherhood, sisterhood, and you got community, family, all that. Especially when you have that back home that you don't. It's not great. You're in a situation your family's not great. Your friends, your circle's not great. That's a great. It's a great thing to have.
And that's the thing. The loneliness is what fuels what I call the deployment itch. I mean, there's a couple of spots in my book I literally referred to a deployment as a vacation from certain family members that were so dysfunctional. It's like, I hate you, but you're my family. So, and yeah, that's why veterans are so, some veterans are so, that's why the community is like tight in these little pockets, but we've got to get the online portion of the veteran community really reined in because we're skinning each other alive online and we're too small of a community to be engaging in attrition to the point where we're contributing to the 22-a-day suicide event, suicide rate, So yeah, we're great locally, but online we've really got to work harder on, at the very least, not skinning each other alive and contributing to the suicide epidemic. So yeah.
I read a little bit of the book to get to start. I'm gonna finish it. It just seems like it's gonna be very entertaining from a storytelling point of view, but also probably I'll see a lot of similarities in some of the stuff that you go through and the stuff that I went through and the friends that I have going through. But as I read through the beginning of this and we have this conversation here, I think it's safe to say you're not entirely PC. Some of the stuff you say is going to be offensive. Some of the stuff in the beginning, a little offensive. And that's okay. But, it's okay. And there's a target audience for this. Like, there's going to be people who are not. It's not going to be it's not for everyone.
Here's the thing. I'm so glad you said that. First of all, political correctness, wokeness is an absolute arch enemy of critical thought and free thought. It is George Carlin referred to it as political correctness is fascism pretending to be manners. Let's be real. No, my aunt, who is in the book, who is Ballbuster 6. She called me up about a couple days after the book came out, and she's like, "Can you take this back down and redo the introduction because it's so offensive?" And I stopped. I paused. I felt my brain starting to hemorrhage, and I just hung up the phone and I blocked her because I didn't want to curse out my aunt. But yeah, no.
But I do think. Look, we're probably going to disagree on this, but I think that there's. And I recorded a show last night where we talked about this. My friend is saying like, you should be able to say whatever you want.
Yeah.
But I think there's things. I think you should be able to say whatever you want, but I also think there's certain things that either shouldn't be. And I take that back. If I go to the Kanye West tweet where he says, "Wake up tomorrow and we're going to go DEFCON 3 on the Jews," I don't think that stuff should be allowed to be said and printed because there's consequence to that. So I think if you talk about heavy-set women in the beginning of your book, who cares, right? I mean, it's offensive, sure, but it's meant to be real. It's honest. It's meant to be more of entertaining and to sort of paint the picture.
Entertaining and it's one of those hard truths that you have to put humor to make it tolerable. Okay, I'm going to speak on that. Okay, according to the Constitution, there's only two things you're not allowed to say. You're not allowed to yell fire in the movie theater to create a public crisis, and you're not allowed to incite a riot. Those are the only two things you're not constitutionally allowed to say.
How do we know that does, like, that's my point. If you write that, Kanye is not going to do anything, but there's plenty of people who worship Kanye who might act on it the same way. I think whatever happened, whatever was said, I think it was a lot of the reason why January 6th happened. So I think, look, I know we're going to disagree on what you say. The Constitution is very old, by the way. There's a lot of things in the Constitution that probably need to be amended and changed a little bit.
Here's what I'll say on that. Antonin Scalia once said, the Constitution is not a living document. It's a contract. It says what it says, and it doesn't say what it doesn't say. Here's the thing: I'm a mechanic. I'm trying to get back into the automotive industry. I am all about replacing old, wore-out parts, but you need to know how to examine the part and see its current condition before you decide. Just because it's old doesn't mean it doesn't still work. You know what I'm saying? Now, like for example, there's those C-130s in the Air Force. There's this one solid black box somewhere in the plane that they said would never break. It broke. So yeah, I'm all about fixing what needs fixing, but you got to inspect the part and try to determine its condition before you just decide to replace. Just because something's old doesn't mean it doesn't. So yeah, like cast iron pots, as long as you can clean off the rust, you can re-season them, and just bam, they're right back in service. You know, there's these people that say they're antiquated weapons. If they still kill you, they're not antiquated. They're just old. If you can still kill somebody with an M1 Garand or a slingshot to the eye, it's not an antiquated weapon. It's just a weapon you have to work a little bit harder to get to use. So we got to have conversations about what does work, what doesn't work, why it does work, and why it doesn't work. And these people that might be offended, here's the thing. You've got innate free will and you've got personal accountability. Okay? We can say all the outlandish, offensive things we want, but guess what? I can still say at the end of the day, I don't care what you think. I am a big boy. I'm a grown man. I'm going to exercise my innate free will and personal accountability and not do something unspeakably violent to you. I'm just going to think you're an idiot. I'm going to call you an idiot, and I'm going to be on my merry way. It's all good.
Yeah, no, there's accountability. Like, you know, there's freedom, not freedom from consequence, freedom of speech, but not freedom from consequence. So generally speaking, if you do something that outrageous or egregious, well, there will be consequences. You're allowed to say it.
And that's the thing.
If you ever say it, you have the right to remain silent. You just don't have the ability to.
Exactly. And it goes back to that. Some people haven't had a good old-fashioned whooping, and it shows. Sometimes we need to take – I hate to say this, but sometimes we need to take the warning labels off of certain things and just let nature take its course and let a buddy of mine, he's also an author. He's a submariner, and the submariners have a motto: the stupid will be punished. We got too many stupid people running around that haven't been punished, so we need to take the warning labels off and let the punishments self-inflict. And be like, hey, I bet you won't do something that stupid again. So yeah, there you go.
I actually wouldn't take that bet because it seems like they keep doing it over and
over
again.
The punishment just isn't severe enough yet.
Well, that's another thing I talked about. There's not enough deterrent for bad behavior and the punishment. And you don't find that in the Army. You're probably even like way worse than maybe it should be, but there's a reason for it, right?
Well, here's the thing. It's one of those things. If you're stupid, you are then messing with unit chemistry. If you're messing with the unit chemistry, you're messing with our ability to come home alive and in one piece, and we're going to deal with your ass. And that's why we're so hot on esprit de corps. We're hot on unity based on conversations where, okay, this is how we feel. This is what we're going to do to resolve problems. This is what we're going to do to survive this mission so we can all get home alive and in one piece. That camaraderie is what keeps us alive, because it keeps us on the same sheet of music. It keeps us supporting each other when things suck.
Yeah, but also just the basic things like if your bed's not made, you get in trouble. If you're late on curfew, if you didn't do this, things that are like, who gives a shit, right? But it all adds up to what happens, you know, when it really does count. And so you're over punished for that stuff to teach you that, look, you're going to think twice before you don't do that again.
Right, and consequences matter in the military big time. But The one thing we do is we make the consequences not. We start out by making the consequences not a paper trail to where it's corrective punishment or mentoring, that tough love. That it's like, oh wow, okay, I get it now. It's about the team. It's about the chemistry. You cannot have team chemistry that's too good. That's not possible. It's all about keeping the team to where they can trust each other. Because if you don't have trust and you don't have chemistry, you're just a bunch of dead people who haven't been put in body bags yet. Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what it's all about. It's all about discipline, chemistry, and getting home alive and in one piece and reasonably sane for being in combat.
Yeah. Obviously you come back, you're struggling. Was that the thing that hit you the hardest and that you were most surprised about as you're home and done is your mental well-being?
Well, here's the thing about your mental well-being when you get home. You get home, you got a car alarm on your car. I'm gonna install a car alarm on my Jeep once I get it pimped out because I want to run around. My neighbor's got a herd, and I'm gonna chase his 1,900-pound crybaby bull around the pasture just to be a dick because he's a 1,900-pound crybaby. So you got the car alarm. You turn on the car alarm. The car alarm does what it's supposed to do to ward off anyone who would try to steal it. You go to turn the alarm off. Let's say a wire shorts out. PTSD is what happens when a system designed to save your life works, but it never turns completely off. That's why we're always hyper alert. That's why we isolate. That's why our mind projects out to the worst possible scenario and paralyzes us from doing sensible things. You know what I'm saying? So that happens. And then once we get home, they throw a bunch of paperwork at us. They throw a bunch of programs at us that they say is designed to work, but the civilians, they don't get war, so their programs are stupid. And then they just throw us to the four winds, and then we kind of got to get back together by phone, get back together by Facebook, get back together by StreamYard, and talk each other down through stuff. I had a veteran who runs a service dog nonprofit. I met him the night I met him. I had to talk him down from committing suicide, and we've been thick as thieves ever since. So we've got to be there for each other. We've got to talk to each other and learn how to talk to each other and basically say, I'm not going to judge/condemn you. I'm going to help you. I'm going to help you fix this. I'm going to help you figure this out. And then we're all we got. And it's that the best we're doing right now is just small unit stuff. And all of our successes are in spite of the VA and the idiot civilians who don't know anything about combat, who just design programs stupidly just to spend government money. We need people who understand combat and combat veterans. This is how their brains work. Your ideas are stupid. Sit down, shut up, and take notes, and we're going to teach you how to interact with these people.
Yeah, there's got to be programs to help people integrate back into life, normal. You would say normal life, the same way as someone who comes out of prison.
Yeah,
they're not equipped to be around everyone and following by the same rules as everyone else. And
my ex-fiance, her sister and I had a really, really fascinating conversation. When an African tribe would send their warriors out to battle, they'd have a separate village. And when the warriors came back, it's like, go to that village, decompress, we'll come get you. You come back slowly. The government doesn't do that. They literally, they do what's called demob, which is where it's paperwork hell. It's turning in all of your gear to where when they issue you the gear, here's your gear. They might as well strap a Connex box to your back. And it looks like crap, and you don't care because you're in a hurry to get downrange. You come back, all this stuff that you stuffed in the Connex box, you pull it out. Oh, this is damage. You're going to charge you. So yeah. All they do, their idea of decompressing is making you give gear back and robbing them of their money because you knew it was trash when you gave it to us, and then making us go through paperwork hell to where our brains are pretty much hemorrhaging from we don't have time to truly decompress. We need to re-examine the way we transition back stateside. Because they just throw us to the four winds and just throw things at us, and they don't actually care what works. Again, they turned the parts cannon concept into a minigun, Jesse Ventura's minigun, and they're just throwing things at you. They don't actually care what works. I threw a government program at you. I don't care if it actually works. here it is. If it doesn't work, it's your fault.
It's a waste of time, money, and all the resources if it's not going to be helpful. Why are we even doing it? And so that's definitely.
I'll tell you exactly why. The government only exists to validate its own existence. So you'll see in the military and in government entities, right before October, at the last 15 to 30 days, there is a glut spending spree where they blow money. Like they blow money by the pallet full just to spend the money, because if they don't spend it, it's taken from them. So they got to go on this horrible spending spree to justify their existence. The
thing is, like,
government,
this is probably for a whole nother episode, but what would we have if we didn't have that? So it's not like we need to get rid of the government. We need to make the government more efficient and make
what you need to do is you need to make government officials who are in the bureaucracy, you need to make them fireable. Right now, there's a process. It would take literally 2 years to fire a government employee. Yeah. And that's because the government sector unions, the VA public sector unions, rule with an iron fist.
Yeah. And even the other ones have 4 years to get reelected, and you still can do bad and still get reelected.
The worst part is the bureaucrats are beholden to no one. It's all about kissing ass. It's all about schmoozing with a politician. It's all about who you can schmooze with,
Yeah.
And once they're in that position, they're virtually untouchable. I mean, like bulletproof. So we need to almost destroy the public sector unions and make America great again. Make government employees fireable sooner than the day before the day they drop dead of old age.
Got to get a group of people and start a movement. That's what it's probably going to take. What were some things that you really missed as you were deployed?
Woo! I missed the brotherhood. I missed my guys. I missed the long
when you were deployed, and the things you missed that you couldn't have that you could have as a regular civilian.
I miss the long, real, raw conversations. I was what I call a pass whore. I got four-day passes to Qatar and 2 deployments. I had so much fun. I got to experience the culture. I actually bought a handmade rug. I bought all kinds of cool stuff. I had a really good – when you're in the war zone but you're on a pass, it's one of the most beautiful places you can be as a human, because you're in the war zone, but you're not quite in the war zone, and you can have real super cool conversations with real super cool people. I met the drummer of Seven Dust. He bought me my last 2 Guinnesses. I got to get a hold of him again. I'm going to get a hold of the drummer of Seven Dust. I got to find I'm sure I've got pictures of us. I got a picture of me holding a beer stein going like this, and then I switched hands and went like this. And man,
you got great stories in the book.
Yeah.
It's 400 pages. How many pages or how many pages can you write of stories that you can't tell?
Oh, I could do another couple of volumes, dude. I could do, spades. 1 definite extra volume, 1 possible. And if I could ever get my guys from the old unit to agree, if we could ever put enough pressure on them, and we could do a volume 2 of all the other guys' stories from the old unit. I've got stories that if I repeated them, the puke factor, the oh wow factor. Here's what I'm gonna say. Wait till you get to the Staff Sergeant Amble character, the things he did. And I'm going to say it. Part 3, I wouldn't be eating any food when you get to part 3, especially you'll never look at colostomy bags the same way ever again after part 3.
I don't know if I'd ever look at a colostomy bag or want to now, but I have stories. I started to write a book, and now I'm, when I was a single guy, about my escapades, and now I'm married. So it's like I could never put this book out with my name attached to it.
Right.
My friends about stories, and so it's just interesting that way. It's great that you were able to do this. I love movies. I always like to talk about movies. A Few Good Men, my favorite movie of all time.
Yeah.
I want two questions regarding film and war.
Sure.
One, are there any movies that you think are pretty close to reality, and what movies do you have that are your favorite?
A Few Good Men's on there. The Hurt Locker was not accurate by any stretch of the imagination, but it was sort of a this is how we wanted it to be. This is what we wanted to do, even though everyone's like, oh, he can't do that. He can't do that. He can't do that. He can't do that. That's BS. That was a this is what we wanted to do story. This is how we wanted to act story, you know. It will be A Few Good Men. There's a series called Generation Kill, which is really good. There is a TV network ran by veterans called Vet TV. They bring the raw gallows humor that I was talking about. They bring some the nasty.
Watching these movies, shows, programs, and is that tough for you?
You know, there is a story in the book. I was watching The Hurt Locker, and I wasn't really. I was explaining things to my cousin's husband, who I got along with pretty good. My other cousins, my male cousin's wife, was that blowhard. She's the one who said, "You're not going to have a flashback, are you?" That story's actually in the book. And she just kept sniping, and then she said, "You're not going to have a flashback, are you?" And I said, "Mark my words, if I have a flashback, you will be directly on the receiving end of it." And she shut that mile-wide pie hole of hers, and the silence was deafening. And my cousin looks at me, and I look at him, I'm like, yeah, I'd have done it.
Pretty ignorant thing to say.
It's
for sure.
Yeah, but we're used to it. We don't like it, but we're used to it. So yeah.
Yeah. We're going to let you out of the Wolff Den with the same question we let everyone out with.
Sure.
You can spend a day with anyone in the world. They have to be alive. And you can't be related to them. Who would you choose, and what would you guys do?
Who would I choose? Alive. Let me think. I'm thinking. I would have to say alive. I would want to have a talk with, there's one royal I would want to talk to. His name is Prince Harry. He's a veteran. And I would want to talk with him and say, dude, how did you go from a veteran who's been downrange, who's done stupid things, to a woman who, I don't want to say Yoko Ono to the royal family, but it's perceived. I would want to talk to him. I was like, dude, why do you not deal with this perception that your old lady Yoko Ono to the royal family? That's something I've just always wondered, because it's like, as you're watching it, it's a real dumpster fire. And the problem with like racism and prejudice in this day and age is it can mean anything. There are no really ironclad. I mean, yes, there are technical definitions, but it's like I've got a tree stump out back, and most of these peons would call that tree stump a form of racism for whatever reason.
I agree with what you're saying, but there is things that are inherently.
Oh, there are, yeah, but
black and white. There's really stuff that's
right, but you can't have the conversation and say this is what constitutes this, and this is what constitutes that. The people just freak out, and the person who's freaking out the loudest. You know, because he was doing a lot of good things. Prince Harry was doing a lot of good things for veterans, at the very least in Britain, while he was a royal, a legit royal, full time. And then now it's like, what the hell is he even doing? He's over here telling us that our freedom is bonkers. I'm like, dude, no, you don't tell us what is. You just get used to it. I want to know how in the hell he allowed. I want to know how in the hell he got in with a woman who essentially Yoko Ono the family.
He's done a lot of good. He'd be an interesting character.
Oh, he is.
Had some stuff with the Invictus Games and the Special Olympics, and really interesting person. Great choice. I don't think we've ever had him as a choice. Haven't had too many non-Americans as a choice. That would be a great choice someday. Maybe we'll make it happen. Who knows? Get the book. We Did Not Deserve the Crapper. On Amazon. Gene Bennett, really, look, thank you for your service first and foremost. And I hope that, whatever it is that you want to accomplish moving forward, you have the resources and the opportunity to do so.
I'll share that right now. This book is going to be re-released on Amazon within the next 7 to 10 days, first of all. Second of all, upcoming projects. I'm working on a cookbook. I'm working on a writer's guide to help write veterans and first responders tell their stories and for reasons. Okay. I'm working on what I will simply refer to as a hybrid brick oven smoker. because the plan is the cookbook gets you from in your room into the kitchen. The hybrid brick oven smoker gets you from your kitchen out of the house. And what everybody says, well, why don't you just buy one of those pellet smokers? It's a fire and forget weapon. You completely destroy the concept of battling your isolation by just setting it and forgetting it. You've got to be out there. You've got to be, you've got to be active. Okay, so yeah, my engineer buddy and I are currently working on that, like as we speak. When I go out to Vegas, I'm going to be working with another veteran who's a chef out there, help me with a cookbook, because my cooking is like, it's what I call somewhere between prison food and comfort food. And he's going to help me class it up, like way up.
Well,
and
let me know when you have all that stuff. The information will blast out the website and get some customers.
My miracle worker publishing consultant, I can't say her name right now, but she's also a website designer, and we're going to load her up with stuff to do. Beautiful. And we're going to hopefully make this work. So A, I don't die poor and destitute. And B, I can say to the veteran community, here, use this, play with this, tell me how it works out. This is my contribution, So
perfect. Yeah. Gene Bennett, again, we did not deserve the crapper. Thanks for sharing your time and your stories, and good luck to everyone.
Thank you for the super cool interview. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Gene. We'll talk to you soon. We got some more Wolff Den tomorrow. Tune in.
Cool.